Hello, I'm Stuart McCarthy. I'm with CANARIE, and today we're talking with Michael Bauer from Science Studio. And Michael, I'm wondering if you could just very quickly and succinctly tell me, what is Science Studio?
Sure. Science Studio is a project to build a web-based system to allow researchers to build, control, design experiments, but connecting into some of the large research facilities that are across the country. We've been focusing on two of the main facilities. One is beam lines, X-ray sources at the Canadian Light Source, and the other one that we have is a scanning electron microscope at Western itself.
Okay, so can you tell me, how does this work?
So the basic idea is typically what happens with most large instruments, since you can't move the instruments, you need to be able to go to those facilities. What Science Studio tries to do is give the researcher remote access to the equipment, so in fact that they don't have to actually travel. They can ship their samples to the facilities, the samples get included, and then they can actually access it through a browser on their desktop or laptop. They can bring in team members. They have a remote control capability to actually control it as if they were actually there. They can also then collect the data, they can do some analysis while online, store the data and all the experimental information. So it's kind of like an experimental lab book, but it also gives them access to the remote facility.
So they need somebody on the other end to assist them?
You do need somebody on the other end. At a minimum, you need somebody to mount the sample. You need to make sure that certain safety rules are followed. This would happen whether they were there or not. It's just part of the process that's used. But what they typically don't have to do is they don't have to bring their team. They don't have to bring their other researchers, their graduate students. Everybody can connect on through the browsers, and they can be anywhere in the world.
So it's time, travel?
Time, travel, all that sort of stuff gets saved.
Excellent. So why do you see that this is important?
Well, I mean, for the obvious reason, just the travel time and moving a whole team of people, running a set of experiments, that's costly, consumes a lot of time. But there's other reasons too, one of which is that through Science Studio and the related project, ANIS, we actually build software to allow them to do some analysis online. So the advantage of this is while they're running the experiment, they can get some feedback in terms of the results. Very often what happened in the past was, and what still happens in many circumstances, is that they collect lots and lots and lots of data, they go away, they analyze it for weeks on end and discover that they don't really have anything useful. So now by combining high-speed networks, very powerful computers, while running the experiment, they can get some indication whether they're actually getting useful data. Then they can actually adjust it and go back and hopefully when they get back have really valuable results.
Okay. Are there applications for this that you see outside of the scientific community?
Yeah. So the way Science Studio is designed is it's basically designed as an environment for running experiments with remote control to devices. So in principle, you could also have it interface to a MRI or a CAT scan. You could have somebody remotely operating it, collecting the data, analyzing it, doing the analysis. Again, if the device is remote, you'd still need somebody there to put a patient in or a sample or whatever, but you don't have to actually have all the people physically there to collect and look at the data. There are other applications as well. We're looking at some applications in terms of training, providing access to devices that can be used by students in engineering laboratories, so that for some institutions they can't afford the equipment, this way they could.
And then the concept of real-time analysis.
And then you end up with the concept of real-time analysis and feedback, which just augments the whole process.
Is the setup just in Canada, or are there international facilities and partners?
Actually, more recently, well, first of all, one of the advantages is browser access. You can actually have team members that are international. The other thing we've recently done is made contact with interested groups in both Brazil and Australia. They also have a similar geographic problem. They also each have a single synchrotron. So one of the interests coming out of those is that they are very interested in Science Studio. Brazil is actually already committed to using it, so they're going to be adapting the software for their own environment, again, to provide remote access to beam lines at the Brazilian synchrotron. So this opens up a lot of opportunities for collaboration in a variety of circumstances where researchers around the world can now access instruments no matter where they are, and in fact analyze the data in different locations, and yet sort of enhance the collaboration across the entire scientific community.
Great. So what do you see as the next steps for this?
Well, I mean, the next steps are to do a couple of things. One of which is to continue to work on the analysis software. We're hoping to kind of establish a center where, in fact, we have analysis software that can be used by synchrotrons running these kind of beam lines across the world. We already have some interest expressed from the accelerator at Berkeley. So that's an obvious kind of next step. The other one is to generalize the underlying software so we can expand it to deal with other kinds of devices more easily. And one of those areas, the other area we like to expand into is interaction with high school students, to perhaps give them access, certainly as partners in projects, perhaps even have them suggest experiments to run, and then they can connect them from the high schools, because all you really need is a browser. So you just have to establish the teams and raise the interest among students themselves. So there's a number of different areas we'd like to proceed.